Hello and welcome. My name is Sive and this is Stories in Sive, and today's video I'm going to chat through a couple of books that I want to read in March. I had made a TBR last month that was quite large and I barely made it through that, and I think I would like to dial it back a little bit. I do like to allow a little bit of wiggle room because I am a mood reader. However, I do have 7 books on this TBR, which is less than last month, but not quite as low as I want to be. But I just couldn't reduce it. Like, I'm so excited for every single one of these books and I'm pumped to share them with you, so let's get into it. I have 2 current reads that I'm gonna chat really quickly with you guys about, and that is Brandon Sanderson. This is Starsight. This is the second book to the Skyward trilogy, which is, or it's not actually a trilogy, it's just a series, and this is a sci-fi. It is one of Brandon Sanderson's YA series, and I finished Skyward last month and absolutely loved it. It was so good. I immediately had to pick this book up and get into it. I started this past weekend and I'm on chapter 10. I'm about 80 pages of the way through it. This starts out with an absolutely amazing fight scene. And if you don't know, this series follows Spenza as she is in a pilot school and she becomes a pilot and flies for Detrius, which is a colony of humans on this planet. In this book, after the events of the first one, essentially they're toying around with the idea of, do they need to send like spies out? And so they're like going through this like training. Are we gonna like train up some spies? But Spenza's definitely not a spy. She's a very talented pilot, but is not super confident in her abilities to basically just like impersonate someone or like a different species. There were a lot of questions asked at the end of the first book, and I'm excited to see how those questions and answers to said questions are integrated into this book. I really enjoy Spenza as a main character. She was a little bit annoying at the beginning, but she has just grown so much, and I think that's really cool to watch. Having a character who you don't like grow into one that is extremely mature and has like the right stuff at heart. Like, she's definitely struggling and she's put in a position where she has to make tough decisions, but that just makes her so much of a better character. This is probably going to be the first book that I finish this month, and I'm tentatively adding an 8th book into this TBR because if I finish this and love it as much as I think I'm going to, I might just go and pick up Cytonic, which is the 3rd book in the series and the last one that is currently out and published. My other current read is also part of a series, and that is Warlock Holmes' My Grave Ritual. This is the 3rd book in the Warlock Holmes series. I am about 40 or so pages into it. I just started it to try and get a little bit of reading in. I wasn't totally in the mood to read, but this is just such a funny, crazy, like ridiculous series. Warlock Holmes follows our classic Sherlock Holmes people, all of the different characters, but with a fantastical twist. Warlock Holmes is indeed a warlock. Lestrade is in it, and there's just like a bunch of crazy creatures going around. Dr. Watson is of course our narrator, and he is the only like true human that is like a main character, and he is the one with the ridiculously amazing observation skills in this version. So this is a lovely Sherlock retelling. It's a lot of fun in between some of the more serious reads, and I'm excited to pick this up. Next on the list are 2 poetry collections, and they are by the same author, and that is Milk and Honey and The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur. My sister-in-law read these and gifted me some copies, so I'm excited to get into it and see what all the hype is about, because this is an incredibly popular poetry collection. This author was published when she was 21, and so I believe this dives into a lot about womanhood and also childhood into womanhood, as well as just like coming into your adolescence, some puberty, sexuality, and just being like a girl. I gave a little flip through and there's some cute little doodles in here as well, so I'm excited to get to these. The next book we have is In the Woods by Tana French, and this is a crime mystery, maybe a little bit of thriller, but mainly it's a crime novel. I believe that this story just follows a death of a young girl. I'm mostly interested in the setting. This takes place in Ireland, and I gifted this to my dad. This is his copy. He read it and he really liked it, and so I'm excited to get to this one and see. I've been eyeing this one. This has actually been on my TBR for quite a long time, And I admit I might have had the ulterior motive purchasing this copy for my dad that I could also pick it up after he read it. So here we are, that time has arrived. I'm also intrigued by, apparently there's 2 different like timelines that are being followed, and I love that, especially in thrillers. I'm excited to see how that's gonna go with like a crime novel, but enjoying 2 different timelines that have to do with the same situation or at least the same group of people is always very entertaining and allows for that extra element of suspense. This is also a series, so if I love it, there's plenty more for me to dive into. The next book I am so excited about, and that is Realmbreaker. And this is the new series by Victoria Aveyard, who is the author of the Red Queen series, and I read that this past summer in its entirety and really liked it. I'm hoping for just like a little bit more from this series. This is definitely the biggest book on my TBR this month, coming in at over 500 pages. I think it's close to 560. And also I'm very excited because the second book in this series comes out in May, and so if I enjoy it, I don't have to wait too much longer before the second book comes out. We follow a character called Coraine, and she can feel that there is a strange darkness growing in the world. She's tucked away in her small town at the edge of the sea. Fate knocks on her door in the form of a mythical, immortal, and lethal assassin who tells Coraine that she is the last of an ancient lineage with the power to save the world from destruction. Alongside an unlikely group of reluctant allies, Coraine finds herself on a desperate journey to complete an impossible task with untold magic singing in her blood and the fate of the world on her shoulders. This sounds so good. This is exactly the same kind of like plot line that I saw in the first book for the Daevabad trilogy, that is The City of Brass, where a young girl is basically like brought in to this magical land because she has an ancient lineage and some sort of ancient magic that was thought to be extinct until they found her. So that was Nari's story in the Daevabad trilogy, and I'm very excited to see how that plays out for Coraine. This is YA. It also talks about like a band of like people coming together to like complete a task or quest, which is another trope that I really love, especially in fantasy. And this says on the back here, it says a squire, an immortal, an assassin, an old sorceress, and a pirate's daughter. The heroes are gone, but the fight to save the world has just begun. I am so excited for this book, and I've been like loving getting into some series recently, and so I'm excited to tackle this one and see where this leads me. And the last book on my March TBR is The Last Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine, and this is a thriller novel about a girl who is obsessed with a socialite, and she essentially like weasels her way into Mrs. Parrish's life. She has a husband and she has 2 daughters, and apparently this person like is completely envious and obsessed with her. And like the summary gave me Parasite vibes as well as just like that thriller element. This was also recommended to me by a friend who knows my taste in thrillers. I recently made a video about it, but essentially I'm learning that I love like mom or like women group of people that have like obsessions over each other and like the drama that ensues because of that. And so I think that this is really gonna hit that spot. It's said to be really twisty and lots of turns, so I'm excited to get into this. So yeah, these are all the books that I'm hoping to get to this month. It is quite the stack, and also I have 2 pretty large books on here. I may or may not get it done, but essentially, these are some books I'm really, really excited to get to, and if I don't get to them in March, I will be getting to them in the springtime. Lots of series that I'm very, very excited about. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoy other videos like this, feel free to subscribe. I'd love to have you. And let me know down in the comments your plans for reading in March. I would love to know what you guys have been eyeing and what you're excited to read. And also if you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts. Let me know which ones I should prioritize or bump up the list. And yes, again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.